Welcome to the Reality Revolution. I'm your host, Brian Scott. Today, I'm so excited we're going to have our first reading of Charles F. Haanel. Of course, if you have heard of Charles Haanel, you probably have heard of the Master Key System. Charles Haanel was a fantastic New Thought author, and he kind of wrote this course with the Master Key System, which allowed for mental development, financial success, and personal health. And the book was heavily promoted in the pages of Elizabeth Town's New Thought magazine, The Nautilus. So check out my episodes with Elizabeth Town. By 1933, it had sold over 200,000 copies. He practiced what he preached, and he was a self-made success who owned several major companies. In 1909, he was president of the Continental Commercial Company, president of the Sacramento Valley Improvement Company, and president of the Mexico Gold and Silver Mining Company. The original Master Key System contained 24 parts, and there's some lost chapters, but he also wrote a book called Mental Chemistry, New Psychology, and there's one really good chapter as a starting point to get a feel for Charles Haanel, because he's spot on with everything he wrote. Is in his book Mental Chemistry, and he talks about transmutation. He talks about transmuting elements, the idea of manifestation, of transmutation, this transformation, this adjustment. This particular chapter really vibrated with me, and I wanted to share it with you. Transmutation by Charles Haanel. Abundance is a natural law of the universe. The evidence of this law is conclusive. We see it on every hand. Everywhere nature is lavish, wasteful, extravagant. Nowhere is economy observed in any created thing. The millions and millions of trees and flowers and plants and animals and the vast scheme of reproduction, where the process of creating and recreating is forever going on, all indicate the lavishness with which nature has made provision for man. That there is an abundance for everyone is evident. They have not yet come into realization of the universality of all substance, and that mind is the active principle which starts causes in motion, whereby we are related to the things we desire. To control circumstances, a knowledge of certain scientific principles of mind action is required. Such knowledge is a most valuable asset. It may be gained by degrees and put into practice as fast as learned. Power over circumstances is one of its fruits. Health, harmony, and prosperity are assets upon its balance sheet. It costs only the labor of harvesting its great resources. All wealth is the offspring of power. Possessions are of value only as they confer power. Events are significant only as they affect power. All things represent certain forms and degrees of power. The discovery of a reign of law by which this power could be made available for all human efforts marked an important epoch in human progress. It is the dividing line between superstition and intelligence. It eliminated the element of caprice in men's lives and substituted absolute, immutable, universal law. A knowledge of cause and effect, as shown by the laws of governing steam, electricity, chemical affinity, and gravitation, enables man to plan courageously and to execute fearlessly. These laws are called natural laws because they govern the physical world. But all power is not physical power. There is also mental power, and there is moral and spiritual power. Thought is the vital force or energy which is being developed and which has produced such startling results in the last half century as to bring about a world which was absolutely inconceivable to a man existing only 50 or even 25 years ago. If such results have been secured by organizing these mental powerhouses in 50 years, what may not be expected in another 50 years. Some will say, if these principles are true, why are we not demonstrating them, as the fundamental principle is obviously correct? Why do we not get proper results? We do. We get results in exact accordance with our understanding of the law and our ability to make the proper application. We did not secure results from the laws governing electricity until someone formulated the law and showed us how to apply it. Mental action inaugurates a series of vibrations in the ether, which is the substance from which all things proceed, which in their turn induce a corresponding grosser vibration in the molecular substance until finally mechanical action is produced. This puts us in an entirely new relation to our environment, opening out possibilities hitherto undreamt of, and this by an orderly sequence of law which is naturally involved in our new mental attitude. It is clear, therefore, that thoughts of abundance will respond only to similar thoughts. The wealth of the individual is seen to be what he inherently is. Affluence within is found to be the secret of attraction for affluence without. The ability to produce is found to be the real source of wealth of the individual. It is for this reason that he who has his heart in his work is certain to meet with unbounded success. He will give and continually give, and the more he gives, the more he will receive. Thought is the energy by which the law of attraction is brought into operation, which eventually manifests in abundance in the lives of men. The source of all power as of all weakness is from within. The secret of all success as well as failure is likewise from within. All growth is an unfoldment from within. This is evident from all nature. Every plant, every animal, every human is a living testimony to this great law. And the error of the ages is in looking for strength or power from without. A thorough understanding of this great law which permeates the universe leads to the acquirement of that state of mind which develops and unfolds a creative thought which will produce magical changes in life. Golden opportunities will be strewn across your path, and the power and perception to properly utilize them will spring up within you. Friends will come unbidden. Circumstances will adjust themselves to changed conditions. You will have found the pearl of greatest price. Wisdom, strength, courage, and harmonious conditions are the result of power, and we have seen that all power is from within. Likewise, every lack, limitation, or adverse circumstances is the result of weakness, and the weakness is simply absence of power. It comes from nowhere. It is nothing. The remedy, then, is simply to develop power. This is the key with which many are converting loss into gain, fear into courage, despair into joy, hope into fruition. This may seem too good to be true, but remember that within a few years, by the touch of a button or the turn of a lever, science has placed almost infinite resources at the disposal of man. Is it not possible that there are other laws containing still great possibilities? Let us see what are the most powerful forces in nature. In the mineral world, everything is sold and fixed. In the animal and vegetable kingdom, it is in a state of flux, forever changing, always being created and recreated. In the atmosphere, we find heat, light, and energy. Each realm becomes finer and more spiritual as we pass from the visible to the invisible, from the coarse to the fine, from the low potentiality to the high potentiality. When we reach the invisible, we find energy in its purest and most volatile state. And as the most powerful forces of nature are the invisible forces, so we find that the most powerful forces of man are his invisible forces, his spiritual force. And the only way in which the spiritual force can manifest is through the process of thinking. Thinking is the only activity which the spirit possesses, and thought is the only product of thinking. Addition and subtraction are therefore spiritual transactions. Reasoning is a spiritual process. Ideas are spiritual conceptions. Questions are spiritual searchlights and logic. Argument and philosophy are parts of the spiritual machinery. Every thought brings into action certain physical tissue, parts of the brain, nerve, or muscle. This produces an actual physical change in the construction of the tissue. Therefore, it is only necessary to have a certain number of thoughts on a given subject in order to bring about a complete change in the physical organization of a man. This is the process by which failure is changed to success. Thoughts of courage, power, inspiration, harmony are substituted for thoughts of failure, despair, lack, limitation, and discord. And as these thoughts take root, the physical tissue is changed and the individual sees life in a new light. Old things have actually passed away. All things have become new. He is born again, this time born of the Spirit. Life has a new meaning for him. He is reconstructed and is filled with joy, confidence, hope, energy. He sees opportunities for success to which he was heretofore blind. He recognizes possibilities which before had no meaning for him. The thoughts of success with which he has been impregnated are radiated to those around him, and they in turn help him onward and upward. He attracts to him new and successful associates, and this in turn changes his environment, so that by this simple exercise of thought, a man changes not only himself, but his environment, circumstances, and conditions. You will see, you must see, that we are at the dawn of a new day, that the possibilities are so wonderful, so fascinating, so limitless, as to be almost bewildering. A century ago, any man with an airplane or even a Gatling gun could have annihilated a whole army equipped with the implements of warfare then in use. So it is at present. Any man with a knowledge of the possibilities of modern metaphysics has an inconceivable advantage over the multitude. Mind is creative and operates through the law of attraction. We are not to try to influence anyone to do what we think they should do. Each individual has a right to choose for himself, but aside from this, we would be operating under the laws of force, which is destructive in its nature and just the opposite of the law of attraction. A little reflection will convince you that all the great laws of nature operate in silence, and that the underlying principle is the law of attraction. It is only destructive processes, such as earthquakes and catastrophes, that employ force. Nothing good is ever accomplished in that way. To be successful, attention must invariably be directed to the creative plane. It must never be competitive. You do not wish to take anything away from anyone else. You want to create something for yourself. And what you want for yourself, you are perfectly willing that everyone else should have. You know that it is not necessary to take from one to give to another, but that the supply for all is abundant. Nature's storehouse of wealth is inexhaustible, and if there seems to be a lack of supply anywhere, it is only because the channels of distribution are as yet imperfect. Abundance depends upon a recognition of the laws of abundance. Mind is not only the creator, but the only creator of all there is. Certainly nothing can be created before we know that it can be created and then make the proper effort. There is no more electricity in the world today than there was 50 years ago. But until someone recognized the law by which it could be made of service, we received no benefit. Now that the law is understood, practically the whole world is illuminated by it. So with the law of abundance, it is only those who recognize the law and place themselves in harmony with it who share in its benefits. A recognition of the law of abundance develops certain mental and moral qualities, among which are courage, loyalty, tact, sagacity, individuality, and constructiveness. These are all moods of thought, and as all thought is creative, they manifest in objective conditions corresponding with the mental condition. This is necessarily true because the ability of the individual to think is his ability to act upon the universal mind and bring it into manifestation. It is the process whereby the individual becomes a channel for the differentiation of the universal. Every thought is a cause and every condition an effect. This principle endows the individual with seemingly transcendental possibilities, among which is the mastery of conditions through the creation and recognition of opportunities. This creation of opportunity implies the existence or creation of the necessary qualities or talents which are thought forces and which result in a consciousness of power which future events cannot disturb. It is this organization of victory or success within the mind, this consciousness of power within, which constitutes the responsive, harmonious action, whereby we are related to the objects and purposes which we seek. This is the law of attraction in action. This law, being the common property of all, can be exercised by anyone having sufficient knowledge of its operation. Courage is the power of the mind, which manifests in the love of mental conflict. It is a noble and lofty sentiment. It is equally fitted to command or obey. Both require courage. It often has a tendency to conceal itself. There are men and women, too, who apparently exist only to do what is pleasing to others. But when the time comes and the latent will is revealed, we find under the velvet glove an iron hand. And no mistake about it, true courage is cool, calm, and collected, and is never foolhardy, quarrelsome, ill-natured, or contentious. Accumulation is the power to reserve and preserve a part of the supply which we are constantly receiving, so as to be in a position to take advantage of the larger opportunities which will come as soon as we are ready for them. Has it not been said, "To him that hath shall be given"? All successful businessmen have this quality well developed. James J. Hill, who recently died, leaving an estate of over $52 million, said, "If you want to know whether you are destined to be a success or failure in life, you can easily find out. The test is simple and it is infallible. Are you able to save money? If not, drop out. You will lose. You may think not, but you will lose as sure as you live. The seed of success is not in you." This is very good so far as it goes, but anyone who knows the biography of James J. Hill knows that he acquired his $50 million by following the exact methods we have given. In the first place, he started with nothing. He had to use his imagination to idealize the vast railroad which he projected across the western prairies. He then had to come into a recognition of the law of abundance in order to provide the ways and means for materializing it. Unless he had followed out this program, he would never have had anything to save. Accumulativeness requires momentum. The more you accumulate, the more you desire. And the more you desire, the more you accumulate. So that it is but a short time until the action and reaction acquire a momentum that cannot be stopped. It must, however, never be confounded with selfishness, miserliness, or penuriness. They are perversions and will make any true progress impossible. Constructiveness is the creative instinct of the mind. It will readily be seen that every successful businessman must be able to plan, develop, or construct. In the business world, it is usually referred to as initiative. It is not enough to go along in the beaten path. New ideas must be developed, new ways of doing things. It manifests in building, designing, planning, inventing, discovering, improving. It is a most valuable quality and must be constantly encouraged and developed. Every individual possesses it in some degree because he is a center of consciousness in that infinite and eternal energy from which all things proceed. Water manifests on three planes: as ice, as water, and as steam. It is all the same compound. The only difference is the temperature, but no one would try to drive an engine with ice. Convert it into steam, and it easily takes up the load. So with your energy, if you want it to act on the creative plane, you will have to begin by melting the ice with the fire of imagination. And you will find the stronger the fire, and the more ice you melt, the more powerful your thought will become. And the easier it will be for you to materialize your desire. Sagacity is the ability to perceive and cooperate with natural law. True sagacity avoids trickery and deceit, as it would the leprosy. It is the product of that deep insight which enables us to penetrate into the heart of things and understand how to set causes in motion which will inevitably create successful conditions. Tact is a very subtle and at the same time a very important factor in business success. It is very similar to intuition. To possess tact, one must have a fine feeling, must instinctively know what to say or what to do. In order to be tactful, one must possess sympathy and understanding. The understanding which is so rare, for all men see and hear and feel, but how desperately few understand. Tact enables one to foresee what is about to happen and calculate the result of actions. Tact enables us to feel when we are in the presence of physical, mental, and moral cleanliness, for those are today invariably demanded as the price of success. Loyalty is one of the strongest links which bind men of strength and character. It is one which can never be broken with impunity. The man who would lose his right hand rather than betray a friend will never lack friends. The man who will stand in silent guard until death, if need be, besides the shrine of confidence or friendship of those who have allowed him to enter, will find himself linked with a current of cosmic power, which will attract desirable conditions only. It is inconceivable that such a person should ever meet with lack of any kind. Individuality is the power to unfold our latent possibilities, to be a law unto ourselves, to be interested in the race rather than the goal. Strong men care nothing for the flock of imitators who trot complacently behind them. They derive no satisfaction in the mere leading of large numbers or the plaudits of the mob. This pleases only petty natures and inferior minds. Individuality glories more in the unfolding of the power within than in the servility of the weakling. Individuality is a real power inherent in all, and the development and consequent expression of this power enables one to assume the responsibility of directing his own footsteps, rather than stampeding after some self-assertive bellwether. Inspiration is the art of imbibing, the art of self-realization, the art of adjusting the individual mind to that of the universal mind, the art of attaching proper mechanism to the source of all power, the art of differentiating the formless into form, the art of becoming a channel for the flow of infinite wisdom, the art of visualizing perfection, the art of realizing the omnipresence of omnipotence. Truth is the imperative condition of all well-being. To be sure, to know the truth and to stand confidently on it is a satisfaction besides which no other is comparable. Truth is the underlying verity, the condition precedent to every successful businessman or social relation. Every act not in harmony with truth, whether through ignorance or design, cuts the ground from under our feet, leads to discord, inevitable loss, and confusion. For while the humblest mind can accurately foretell the result of every correct action, the greatest, most profound, and penetrating mind loses its way hopelessly and can form no conception of the result due to departure from correct principles. Those who establish within themselves the requisite elements of true success have established confidence, organized victory, and it only remains for them to take such steps from time to time as the newly awakened thought force will direct, and herein rests the magical secret of all power. Less than 10% of our mental processes are conscious. The other 90% are subconscious and unconscious, so that he would depend upon his conscious thought alone for results is less than 10% efficient. Those who are accomplishing anything worthwhile are those who are enabled to take advantage of this greater storehouse of mental wealth. It is in the vast domain of the subconscious mind that great truths are hidden, and it is here that thought finds its creative power, its power to correlate with its object, to bring out of the unseen the seen. Those familiar with the laws of electricity understand the principle that electricity must always possess from a higher to a lower potentiality, and can therefore make whatever application of the power they desire. Those not familiar with this law can affect nothing. So with the law governing in the mental world, those who understand that mind penetrates all things, is omnipresent, and is responsive to every demand, can make use of the law and can control conditions, circumstances, and environment. The uninformed cannot use it because they do not know it. The fruit of this knowledge is, as it were, a gift of the gods. It is the truth that makes men free. Not only free from every lack and limitation, but free from sorrow, worry, and care. And it is not wonderful to realize that this law is no respecter of persons, that it makes no difference what your habit of thought may be. The way has been prepared. With the realization that this mental power controls and directs every other power which exists, that it can be cultivated and developed, that no limitation can be placed upon its activity, it will become apparent that it is the greatest fact in the world, the remedy for every ill, the solution for every difficulty, the gratification of every desire. In fact, that is the Creator's magnificent provision for the emancipation of mankind. Thoughts are things. Henry Van Dyke. I hold it true that thoughts are things. They're endowed with bodies and breath and wings, and that we send them forth to fill the world with good results or ill. That which we call our secret thought speeds forth to earth's remotest spot, leaving its blessings or its woes like tracks behind it as it goes. We build our future, thought by thought, for good or ill, yet know it not. Yet so the universe was wrought. Thought is another name for fate. Choose, then they destiny and wait. For love brings love, and hate brings hate. The nervous system is matter. Its energy is mind. It is therefore the instrument of the universal mind. It is the link between matter and spirit, between our consciousness and the cosmic consciousness. It is the gateway of infinite power. Both the cerebrospinal and the sympathetic nervous systems are controlled by nervous energy that is alike in kind, and the two systems are so interwoven that their impulses can be sent from one to the other. Every activity of the body, every impulse of the nervous system, every thought uses up nervous energy. The system of nerves may be compared to a telegraph system, the nerve cells corresponding to the batteries, the fibers to the wires. In the batteries is generated electricity. The cells, however, do not generate nervous energy. They transform it, and the fibers convey it. This energy is not a physical wave like electricity, light, or sound. It is mind. It hears the same relationship to the mind as a piano does to its player. The mind can only have perfect expression when the instrument through which it functions is in order. The organ of the cerebrospinal nervous system is the brain. The organ of the sympathetic nervous system is the solar plexus. The first is the voluntary or conscious, the latter, the involuntary or subconscious. It is through the cerebrospinal nervous system and the brain that we become conscious of possessions. Hence, all possession has its origin in consciousness. The undeveloped consciousness of a babe or the inhibited consciousness of an idiot cannot possess. This mental condition, consciousness, increases in direct proportion to our acquisition of knowledge. Knowledge is acquired by observation, experience, and reflection. We become conscious of these possessions by the mind, so that we recognize that possession is based on consciousness. This consciousness we designate the world within. Those possessions of form that we acquire are the world without. That which possesses in the world within is mind. That which enables us to possess in the world without is also mind. Mind manifests itself as thoughts, mental pictures, words, and actions. Thought is therefore creative. Our power to use thought to create the conditions, surroundings, and other experiences of life depends upon our habit of thinking. What we do depends upon what we are. What we are is the result of what we habitually think. Before we can do, we must be. Before we can be, we must control and direct the force of thought within us. Thought is force. There are but two things in the universe, force and form. When we realize that we possess this creative power and that we can control and direct it, and by it act on the forces and forms in the objective world, we shall have made our first experiment in mental chemistry. The universal mind is the substance of all form and force, the reality that underlies all in accordance with fixed laws from itself and by itself is all brought into being and sustained. It is the creative power of thought in its perfect expression. The universal mind is all consciousness, all power, and is everywhere present. It is essentially the same at every point of its presence. All mind is one mind. This explains the order and harmony of the universe. To apprehend this statement is to possess the ability to understand and solve every problem of life. Mind has a twofold expression, conscious or objective, and subconscious or subjective. We come into relationship with the world without by the objective mind, and with the world within by the subconscious mind. Though we are making only a distinction between the conscious and the subconscious minds, such a distinction does not really exist. But this arrangement will be found convenient. All mind is one mind. In all phases of the mental life, there is an individual unity and oneness. The subconscious mind connects us with the universal mind, and thus we are brought into direct relationship with all power. In the subconsciousness is stored up the observations and the experiences of life that have come to it through the conscious mind. It is the storehouse of memory. The subconscious mind is a great seed plot in which we have been dropped, or experiences conveyed by observation or happenings planted to come up again into the consciousness with the fruitage of their growth. Consciousness is the inner, and thought is the outward expression of power. The two are inseparable. It is impossible to be conscious of a thing without thinking of it. We have captured the lightning and changed its name to electricity. We have harnessed the waters and made the remorseless flood our servant. By the miracle of thought, we have quickened water into vapor to bear the burdens and move the commerce of the world. We have called into being floating palaces that plow the highways of the deep. We have triumphed in our conquest of the air. Although we are moored in the silvern archipelago of the Milky Way, we have conquered time and space. When two electric wires are in close proximity, the first carrying a heavier load of electricity than the second will receive by induction some current from the first. This will illustrate the attitude of mankind to the universal mind. They are not consciously connected with the source of power. If the second wire were attached to the first, it would become charged with as much electricity as it could carry. Then we become conscious of power, we become a life wire. Because consciousness, we are connected with the power. In proportion to our ability to use power, we are enabled to meet the various situations which arise in life. The universal mind is the source of all power and all form. We are channels through which the power is being manifested. Consequently, within us is power unlimited, possibilities without end, and all under the control of our own thought. Because we have these powers, because we are in living union with the universal mind, we may adjust our control every experience which may come to us. There are no limitations to the universal mind. Therefore, the better we realize our oneness with this mind, the less conscious we'll be of any limitation or lack, and the more conscious of power. The universal mind is the same at every point of its presence, whether in the infinitely large or the infinitely small. The difference in the power relatively manifested lies entirely in the ability of expression. A stick of clay and a stick of dynamite of equal weight contain much the same amount of energy, but in the one it is readily set free, whereas in the other we have not yet learned how to release it. In order to express, we must create the corresponding condition in our consciousness. Either in the silence or by repetition, we impress this condition upon the subconsciousness. Consciousness apprehends and thought manifests the conditions desired. Conditions in our life and in our environment are but the reflections of our predominant thoughts. So the importance of correct thinking cannot be overestimated. Having eyes and seeing not, having ears and hearing not, neither do they understand, is another way of expressing the truth that without consciousness there can be no apprehension. Thought constructively used creates tendencies in the subconsciousness. These tendencies manifest themselves as character. The primary meaning of the word character is an engraved mark, as on a seal, and means the peculiar qualities impressed by nature or habit on a person, which separates the person possessing them from all others. Character has an outward and inward expression, the inward being purpose and the outward ability. Purpose directs the mind towards the ideal to be realized, the object to be accomplished, or the desire to be materialized. Purpose gives quality to thought. Ability is the capacity to cooperate with omnipotence. Although this may be done unconsciously, our purpose and our ability determine our experiences in life. It is important that purpose and ability be balanced. When the former is greater than the latter, the dreamer is produced. When the ability is greater than the purpose, impetuosity is the result, producing much useless activity. By the law of attraction, our experiences depend upon our mental attitude. Like is attracted to like. Mental attitude is as much the result of character as character is of mental attitude. Each acts and reacts on the other. Chance, fate, luck, and destiny seem to be blind influences at work behind every experience. This is not so, but every experience is governed by immutable laws, which may be controlled so as to produce the conditions which we desire. Everything visible and tangible in the universe is composed of matter, which is acted upon by force. As matter is known to us by its external appearances, we shall designate it as form. Form may be divvied into four classes: that possessing form only, or the inorganic, as for example iron, marble, etc., form that is living, or the organic, which is sensation and voluntary motion as in animals, form that in addition is conscious of its own being and its possessions as man. The fundamental principle underlying every successful business relation or social condition is the recognition of the difference between the world within and the world without, the subjective world and the objective world. Around you, as the center of it, the world without revolves. Matter, organized life, people, thoughts, sounds, light, and other vibrations, the universe itself with its numberless millions of phenomena, sending out vibrations towards you. Vibrations of light, of sound, of touch, loudness, softness, of love, hate, of thoughts, good and bad, wise and unwise, true and untrue. These vibrations are directed toward you, your ego, by the smallest, as well as by the greatest, the farthest and the nearest. A few of them reach your world within, but the rest pass by, and as far as you are immediately concerned, are lost. Some of these vibrations or forces are essential to your health, your power, your success, your happiness. How is it that they have passed you by and have not been received in your world within? When making a gramophone record, certain conditions must be observed. Everything coming within range of the transmitter will be recorded, provided that the disk to receive the vibrations has been properly prepared and the requisite conditions are observed. Assuming that the transmitter is perfect, any defect in the recording disk will make a corresponding deficient record. For example, the disk may not be perfectly flat, or may not be moving at the correct speed, or the wax may be too soft or too hard, or the contact of the needle may be imperfect. The world within possesses sensibility, a faculty that catches the vibrations from the world without and conveys them to the world within. It is the link that joins the two worlds. The sensibility is a form of consciousness. Considering consciousness as a general term, we may say that it is the result of the world without acting on the world within. This takes place continuously, whether we are awake or asleep. Consciousness is the result of sensing or feeling. We easily recognize three phases of consciousness, between each of which there are enormous differences. Simple consciousness, which all animals possess in common, it is the sense of existence by which we recognize that we are, and that we are where we are, and by which we perceive the various objects and varied scenes and conditions. Self-consciousness possessed by all mankind except infants and the mentally deficient. This gives us the power of self-contemplation, the effect of the world without upon our world within. Self-contemplates self. Amongst many other results, language has thus come into existence, each word being a symbol for a thought or an idea. Cosmic consciousness, this form of consciousness, is as much above self-consciousness as self-consciousness is above simple consciousness. It is as different from either as sight is different from hearing or touching. The blind can get no true notion of color, however keen his hearing or sensitive his touch. Neither by simple consciousness nor by self-consciousness can one get any notion of cosmic consciousness. It is not like either of them any more than the sight is like hearing. A deaf man can never learn of the value of music by means of his senses or of sight or of touch. Cosmic consciousness is all forms of consciousness. It overrides time and space, for apart from the body and the world of matter, these do not exist. The immutable law of consciousness is that in the degree that consciousness is developed, so is the development of power in the subjective and its consequent manifestation in the objective. Cosmic consciousness is the result of the creation of the necessary conditions so that the universal mind may function in the direction desired. All vibrations in harmony with the ego's well-being are caught and used. When truth is directly apprehended or becomes a part of consciousness without the usual processes of reasoning or observation, it is intuition. By intuition, the mind instantly perceives the agreement or the disagreement between two ideas. The ego always so recognizes truth. By intuition, the mind transforms knowledge into wisdom, experience into success, and takes into the world within the things that have been waiting for us. In the world without intuition, then, is another phase of the universal mind that presents truth as facts of consciousness. The thinker, back of the beating hammer, by which the steel is wrought, back of the workshop's clamor, the seeker may find the thought that is ever master of iron and steam and steel, that rises above disaster and tramples it under heel. Burton Braley. Promise yourself to be so strong that nothing can disturb your peace of mind, to talk health, happiness, and prosperity to every person you meet, to make all your friends feel that there is something in them, to look on the sunny side of everything and make your optimism come true, to think only of the best, to work only for the best, and to expect only the best, to be just as enthusiastic about the success of others as you are about your own, to forget the mistakes of the past and press on to the greater achievements of the future, to wear a cheerful countenance at all times, and to have a smile ready for every living creature you meet. To give so much time to the improvement of yourself that you have no time to criticize others, to be too large for worry, too noble for anger, too strong for fear, and too happy to permit the presence of trouble, to think well of yourself and to proclaim this fact to the world, not in loud words, but in great deeds, to live in the faith that the world is on your side, so long as you are true to the best that is in you. Christian D. Larson. And so we end on the Optimist Creed, which I've also read in my meditation, taking the vow. This is wonderful for me. You may have a hard time following what he's saying. He does have a unique way of writing that is very profound and very specific, but if you look through this, he's talking about the actual power of the thought on our mind. But the really key part, which corresponds with U.S. Anderson, I have an episode by U.S. Anderson that may or may not be out by the time you're hearing this. That one, he contemplates the universal mind, which is, I believe, a part of the law of one. We are all one thought within one mind. And so the universal mind is expressed in nature. We can see the mind working in all creatures, creating realities. We see the lizard wanting to become the bird, and that's why that we have birds. And we see the fish wanting to enter land, and that's why we have lizards. And so there's all of these expressions of thought all around us by the universal mind. And we are a part of that universal mind. And so this is expressed very easily in this beautiful writing. The rest of the book is fantastic. It's Mental Chemistry by Charles Haanel. And he has a unique way of talking about vibration. Seems to be the kind of material that when I read it, it has a certain subconscious quality that tends to awaken thoughts and ideas within me that awaken my power. So definitely recommend the Master Key System. I might read that. I've contemplated reading that for a while. It's just a long one, but I'm going to do it for sure at some point. Thank you for joining me today on another excursion into New Thought, Law of Attraction, Metaphysical Paradise. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone that joined me. I'm sending out love and happiness and joy to everyone that's listening. All episodes of The Reality Revolution can be found at therealityrevolution.com. And welcome to The Reality Revolution.